Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Betting Pros podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris. Find me on Twitter at DanHarris80. It is week 5. It is time for our best bets. And here with me is a guy you know, a guy you love, Scott Bogman. You know him from the College Football Podcast. You know him as co-host of In This League podcast. Find him on Twitter at Bogman Sports, joining us straight from Victorian England. Bogman, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm definitely, not the stereotypical person that loves fantasy sports and sports, living at home with mom. So that's good. You
do what you got to do, man, to get by. Yes, hopefully you're watching. If you're not, please go to youtube.com/bettingpros. You can see his lovely background, which is looks like a lovely lady's bedroom, which is fine.
That's right.
I know you've got some construction going on.
Construction in the house, right?
I still appreciate you making the time for us, despite all that. Man. So you guys know what this is. It's our 3 best bets of the weekend, whether it's against the spread, whether it's over under, whether it's money line or whatever, and then we'll quickly run through the remaining games. A couple of housekeeping items before we get in, including the most recent offer from BetMGM, our sponsor. New customers bet $10, win $200 if your team scores a TD. Again, that is $200, pardon me, in free bets when you bet an NFL game and the team you bet on to win scores a touchdown. That is available in New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, West Virginia, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Virginia, Iowa, Washington, D.C., Arizona, and Wyoming. When you use the code JUICE100, again, JUICE, the Daily Juice, our daily podcast hosted by Matt Peralt. That's the code JUICE100 for new customers over at BetMGM. Second, we are giving away a signed Saquon Barkley jersey. Just leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts. You want it, Bogman? Go ahead. Leave a review.
All right.
Talk about how great you are on Apple Podcasts or CastBox, and then go to bettingpros.com/review. Here's a great part, Bogman. I assume you are subscribed already to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/bettingpros. Of course, that counts as 3 times the entries into the contest. Congratulations. Good job. Hopefully you get it. Actually, just to be clear, we are prohibited from winning the contest. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, man.
Can you just send it to me and give away something else?
You got it. I'll win you one on Pristine Auction. Everything's so inexpensive there anyway. Who cares? All right, let's get into it. Again, we have consensus lines over at bettingpros.com, but there are different books, so we will note that as well. Briefly, let's recap last week. It was a good week for our little podcast here. Pat Fitzmaurice hit on the Jets getting 7 from the Titans, and he also said we should sprinkle on the money line, which we did. That went well. And the Eagles and the Chiefs over 54, which that went way over. He did miss on the Panthers getting 4 from the Cowboys. As for me, I hit on all 3 of my best bets. The Ravens Broncos. How's it going? Under 45.5 for the Ravens Broncos. Giants getting 7.5 from the Saints, and the Steelers Packers under 45.5. So I am 5-1 over the last 2 weeks. So if I do poorly here, it is Bogman's fault, as we generally know. Bogman, you are the guest. Again, you are time traveling, so please go ahead. Give us your best bet of the weekend for the NFL.
My favorite one is the over on the New England and Houston game. And it's not because I think these offenses are going to be explosive at all. I expect 3 and outs from Houston. I expect short fields for New England, which sets up for easy touchdowns, probably some turnovers as well. So I see this game playing out as like a 35-7, something like that. The over is 39.5, and it could be even worse than that. And if we get some garbage time from Houston, which you don't see against Bill Belichick a lot, but it can happen, I think it goes way over that. So I think that number is just a little bit too low, knowing that both these offenses aren't fantastic. I just think that, you're going to set up short fields for Belichick. He's going to take advantage, and he's going to run up the score. It's what he does.
Well, spoiler, that is a very, very low total, obviously. Yes. And spoiler alert, my first pick will also be a total, but I am actually going to go under with my total. But I will talk about this with this. I'm wondering what you think of this, Bogman, that I think that the Texans may put up a little more of a fight here, and not that goes against the over whatsoever. If anything, it probably goes towards the over. But I think, you've got a little bit of a letdown spot here for the Patriots, where that defense played so incredibly well. You got the Texans, which I feel like the market is just generally undervaluing because it's a short memory, and you just saw them get absolutely obliterated by the Bills. I think this game could see some points on both sides here, and I wouldn't be surprised if it went over by a hearty amount. I'm not wanting to do it, but I do feel like the Texans are going to be able to put up a little more points, I feel like, than I think the general public is expecting. What do you think?
I hope you're right. I just have no trust and no faith in Davis Mills. And
that's correct.
Didn't really like him coming out of the draft anyway. I thought he went too high. It was the Texans' first pick, And I don't think they put him in very good positions here. His very first start was on short rest. Then his next start was on the road against Buffalo, who was angry. Yeah. So, and this game against Bill Belichick, one of the best chess piece masterminds in the history of the NFL, not very great. They're not putting him in a position to succeed here. So I hope you're right. I hope we see some. I would love to get some fantasy production out of somebody in not named Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, even after the bad week, is still overall pretty decent. And we get Tyrod back next week. Fingers crossed. Hopefully. But I mean, I just don't see much fight from Houston right now.
I completely agree with you on Mills. Other than the fact that I did think he looked better than I expected. I think against the Panthers in that Thursday night game because I don't have much faith in him. Right? I mean,
he looked better running no huddle.
Confident.
So maybe they're going to put some of that in there for him. Maybe a little hurry up offense, maybe something like that. Play to his strengths. But he wasn't that good at Stanford. He was an enormous, he was a 99.999-247 recruit there. Just never played great there either. Yeah. So I was just a little leery on him coming in, and he should not be starting this early in his NFL career.
I completely agree with all of that, but I do like the over. I do lean that way as well if I went somewhere. I am going to go with the same total, but I am going to go under despite how low it is, and it is the Steelers-Broncos at that same number, 39.5. You just heard me recap last week. I went under the Broncos game last week. They are now 4-0 toward the under, and I think there's a real reason for that. I think they're going to be 5-0 here to the under. Again, 39.5. It's an incredibly small number, Bogman, as we sort of talked about. But you can start with the big basics, which is these are two very, very solid defenses. The Broncos are 7th in defensive DVOA and weighted defensive DVOA. So they've played some cake matchups, but obviously weighted DVOA takes that into account. The Steelers are 22nd, but really where they've struggled is their pass defense. 23rd in defensive DVOA against the pass, but 7th in defensive DVOA against the run. And again, Watt was out for a couple of those games, so that matters too. And if you're struggling against the pass, the Broncos are a pretty good matchup right now because they're middle of the road. But again, no Jerry Jeudy. I think the loss of KJ Hamler is big. And not, again, I said this last week, not because of his production, but because it's the field stretcher that opens up these sort of intermediate routes, right, for Tim Patrick, who I love, for Courtland Sutton, who I love. And without that stretch in the field, I think it's really difficult for them to get drives going unless they can run the ball effectively, which, again, Melvin Gordon a little banged up. And, again, the Steelers have a strong run defense. And this is to say nothing of the fact, Bogman, that we don't even know if Teddy Bridgewater is going to play in this game, right? I mean, that is the thing. Like, it could be Drew Lock. He's progressing out of the concussion, but we still don't know. So it's hard for me to see either team scoring points, especially with a pumped-up crowd. Well, certainly Denver scoring points with a pumped-up crowd. And for the Steelers, we know how bad the Steelers are offensively. Yeah. This has earned how bad they are. They're 23rd in offensive pass DVOA, 27th in offensive rushing DVOA. The offensive line is terrible. Ben is banged up. Claypool may not play. To me, Bogman, I feel like there has to be a defensive scorer here or a turnover deep in someone's territory for this to really put up points. I've been going with the unders for the Broncos the whole year. I'm sticking with it even with this, especially because, again, there's nothing to get excited about with the Pittsburgh offense.
I picked the over, making my picks in this game, but it's just because the number's so low for both these teams. I'm a Steelers fan. They've got nothing on offense right now. Ben can't throw the ball down the field. He missed Juju for 2 touchdowns last week. Those were
wide open
scores.
On that.
He missed, almost like Marquise Brown dropping the ball a couple weeks ago, which also played towards the under. You know what I mean? So I understand where you're coming from on the under, but it's specifically with these guys. Denver really banged up. Pittsburgh banged up too, but just bad on the offensive line. So the one thing, I was listening to a Steelers podcast before we fired today, and there's this crazy stat about Cam Hayward. With Cam Hayward on the field, Steelers run defense 3 yards per carry. Without Cam Hayward on the field, 8.3 yards per carry. So
that's a stat.
Ugly. Yeah, and he's questionable. He's going to play.
He's going to play, right?
But if he has to leave early or something, it get real ugly for Pittsburgh.
Oh boy!
Real fast.
All right, that's a good point. I was assuming that he was going to play, but you're right. If he's questionable,
he's Cam Hayward. He sat down for 5 minutes, left the field, came back after 1 snap. He plays through everything.
He does.
Ironhead's son. You know what I mean? So
all right. Let's get to your second bet. What do you got here?
I'm going to take Green Bay -3. I know they're on the road against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati has looked pretty decent but have they played anybody, really? You know what I mean? They should have lost to Jacksonville on short rest at home. I don't like that. They beat a bad Pittsburgh team. They beat Minnesota in overtime. So I get it. Cincinnati looks good, but Aaron Rodgers is now clicking on all cylinders. I know this is a road game for them, but I don't really care. I think they're going to go in there. They're going to run down Cincinnati's throat, and they're going to throw over their heads. Cincinnati still has some banged-up guys. I know Jesse Bates is coming back. Yep. Wouzier is a little questionable, I think, in this game as well. I know we're going to get, Jair Alexander's going to miss this game for Green Bay.
Correct.
Which doesn't play towards them, but Joe Mixon is out too. So I think Cincinnati becomes fairly one-dimensional as well. So I think this Green Bay -3 is a little short, and I like them on the road, and I love that escalator of sadness since I'm a Steelers fan. So,
what's interesting to me, Bogman, is that when I looked at this, when Joe and I actually looked at it on Monday, I think it was 3.5 at the time, and my guess is that this is a sharp, sort of the sharps are going to be on the Bengals in this game, because I think that probably the public is going to be backing the Packers. If it were 3.5, if it bounced back to there, would you still like it there, or is it just at the 3?
Like yeah,
you still like it. Okay.
Yeah, I think Green Bay just they're just going to move the ball better, and I specifically like what we saw from A.J. Dillon last week. Once they get a lead, is in the fourth quarter against tired defenses. That is what that dude is built for.
Yeah.
You give him the ball in the fourth quarter, and he runs over all those tired linemen and linebackers and safeties. So I like what Green Bay is doing. I think they're clicking right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't have a lean one way or the other on this game. Because again, I think T. Higgins is probably going to make it back for this game, and I know there's not going to be Joe Mixon, and we've seen Samaje Perine do whatever. But I do think that the Packers being down, almost certainly down Jair Alexander. I don't know if he's actually been declared out yet, but I assume he's going to miss. And with T. Higgins coming back, I think the Bengals are going to be able to put up a lot of points here. But I don't have a good feel for it. So it's a stay away from me, but I like where you're going. There's no way you like this game, by the way, because I am the last human being who basically wants to bet on the Philadelphia Eagles right now. And it is the Eagles plus 3.5 in Carolina. And I'm going down with the What? You did?
I did pick the Eagles. So
I knew I had you on for a reason.
Don't love the game, but I did pick the Eagles. I don't think Carolina's really beat anyone impressive.
That's great. That is where we get to, by the way. I think Carolina.
It's my same strategy with Cincy. Same deal.
Okay. I think that's fair. It's a fair strategy. Then let's go. You get to back the Packers, though, taking on Cincy. I have to take the Eagles. So that's worse for me. But you're right. Yeah, they beat up, right. Who'd they beat up on? The Jets, the Saints, the Texans. That's not that impressive. Then we saw holes again in their defense, especially when they go up against the Cowboys, which, by the way, that was them off a mini bye, right? Like they had the Thursday night game, so they got to go. And the Cowboys were off a short week there as well. So
and their play caller's out too, Shaq Thompson.
And they're pretty banged up. That's what I'm saying defensively. So I don't. Is Gilmore's not going to play in this game, is he?
No, I can't imagine he does.
Even if he does, he's not going to know the playbook or anything like that. I know Christian McCaffrey is playing, but I don't expect him to play in this game either. And again, Sam Darnold from a fantasy perspective has been great, but I have not been overly impressed with him from a real life standpoint. Like I'm glad he's rushing for the touchdowns, everything like that, but he has not struck me as the type of guy who's going to win you any games. And the big thing with the Panthers D, by the way, is they get a ton of pressure, right? Like that's what they do. They get pressure almost better than anybody in the league. But the thing is that pressure is not really what works with the Eagles. Number one, their offensive line, obviously it's been banged up, and you had Lane Johnson missed last week for personal reasons. Sounds like he's going to play in this game. They're getting a little healthier, but either way, against Jalen Hurts, it just doesn't work. That's not the way. His escapability, he's been good here when he's gotten pressured. So this strikes me.
You're going to take Chin away, too, because Chin, I think, is going to be spying him most of the time. So that takes a playmaker out. So
great point as well. So this to me, I don't know if the Eagles are going to win this game necessarily, but I do think they're going to be able to keep this close. So this strikes me as a field goal game. If you're giving me the hook, that's where I'm going to take it. And even if you're not that excited about it, you picked it as well, right, in the BettingPros app. So we're basically simpatico here. I love it.
That's right.
You're all in on the Eagles. All right, third bet. What do you got?
I've got Minnesota -9.5 against Detroit, and it's more from what I saw from Detroit last week against Chicago than me loving Minnesota because, look, they only put up 7 points against Cleveland, and that's not going to inspire a lot of confidence in anyone. But I think Detroit, specifically with the injuries, Aquara goes down, Brockers is questionable on that defensive line. That does not lend in favor towards Detroit. And I know Detroit has played some hard games, right? They played some teams hard. They're in that Niners game at the end. You know, they have looked better than expected. But last week they turned into a pumpkin, and I think that's where we're heading for the rest of the year for Detroit, right? So I think it's going to be a lot of running up the gut with, even if Cook's not healthy. We saw Madison put up a ton of yards too. I mean, it's not, wash your hands and put in the next guy, but he is pretty good, especially in a situation where he's going up against a roughed-up defense. Penei Sewell got smoked last week by Robert Quinn, and Danielle Hunter is better than Robert Quinn, so you're either going to have to get real good real fast, Penei, or they're going to have to chip over there, which is going to take their best playmaker and Hawkinson out a lot of the time too. DeAndre Swift's questionable. I just think this is domination by the Vikings this week.
And don't forget, Hawkinson also is banged up a little bit. He's been in and out of practice.
And he just hasn't been playing great.
Correct. He hasn't been. Yeah. But their offensive line, which was at one point a real strength of their team, is also banged up, and that's kind of pulling them down a little bit. I agree with you. It's a big number, but I'm okay laying it as well. I did pick this one in the app. I haven't bet it actually personally because at DraftKings, they're the only book that's hanging out there. Again, I'm on BettingPros.com. I can see every book. They're the only book hanging out there at 10. Not that, whatever, but every other book basically is at 9.5. That's the consensus line. 10 is not quite as enticing, but I agree with you. I think the Vikings, and they are desperate, right? They need this win.
They need it.
They're gonna be able to do whatever they want offensively. They could obviously we know about the issues with the Lions secondary at this point. I think they're gonna come out at home in an absolutely must-win game. Kudos to the Lions, by the way, for playing hard. Dan Campbell, we make fun of. They play hard, right?
Look, Dan Campbell's been much better than Urban Meyer. We can say that for him at least, right? So, at least nothing off the field for Dan Campbell yet. So.
It's a low bar. Yeah, that's a low bar, but that's true. Yeah, but I am with you on this one. I do think, I know it's a big number, but I also like the Vikings laying 9.5. I have it as well. Picked it in the app. So my third pick gets a little squishy now because right before we were recording this, we learned that Calvin Ridley was out for this game. I expected Russell Gage is also out for this game, which I kind of expected. That's fine. And so actually the total's coming down. And so right now, the latest I have is it's at 45.5. So I would wait if, like me, you want to go over, which I still do, even without Ridley. It's squishy now. I felt better about it before Ridley, but it was at 46.5. It's falling now to 45.5. My fault to 45. I'd wait as long as possible because I don't see it bouncing back up. But London is a variable. Okay, I admit, regardless of anything else, you travel to London, it does a toll on you, and that we don't know exactly what we're going to see here. But the Jets' offense looked a little better here against the Titans, and I think there are two reasons for that. The first is that as much as we make fun of the Jets' offense is not that bad. The offensive line has struggled, of course, but Zach Wilson, he threw 4 interceptions in that game, but you give him a little time, you give him a defense that's not, I won't say an elite unit, but an above average unit like he played the first several games with the Panthers, with the Patriots, with the Broncos in Denver. Now that you've got sort of a softer defense like you had with the Titans, he looked pretty good last week. He made some good reads, uncorked some good throws. The second is I think Jameson Crowder really makes a difference to that offense.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
Completely changes what they're going to. By the way, and Elijah Moore may also play in this game, but I think that Crowder gives him that little safety blanket, opens up some room for him and Corey Davis. So I really think that they're going to put up points here on the Jets side. And, Atlanta doesn't get a ton of pressure generally. I mean, they did against the Giants, but whatever. But I don't expect them to here. Yeah. And again, that's really what has forced Wilson into making some bad decisions. So again, I think the offense for the Jets is going to put up points here. The issue obviously is, do the Falcons, without Calvin Ridley and without Russell Gage, still put up points? The Jets secondary, who has a bunch of no-names, has played a little better than expected, but still... Oh,
come on. Don't disrespect Brandon Eichels like that.
I think in
and
the
Bryce
end,
Hall.
I actually am a Bryce Hall fan, but we could talk about that off air. I think that, even with Cordero Patterson being the main guy and it being gimmicky, Mike Davis not showing much, but again, Zacchaeus will factor in. I think it's going to be a big Kyle Pitts game. So I still think that Atlanta. I think it's got to be a Pitts game. If this isn't, then we, and fantasy wise, we have to just move on from the guy entirely.
So.
But in the end, I think both. And in a weird game, again, I think the defenses are going to be. I think when teams are tired, and I feel like I see it on Thursday night. For the most part, it affects the defenses even more than the offenses. So with the travel, with the time and everything like that, I think it could be a little bit affected there. So even with the injuries, I'm still going to go. I would wait, by the way, for this. Like right now it's 45.5, but it is coming down. I would wait as long as possible. I don't see it bouncing back up at this point with the injuries, but I'm going to go over here for 45.5 for the Jets Falcons.
I hate the number. I just don't like it. I'm a run away from it, but I picked the under, but with not a lot of confidence, just because we pick every game.
Do you pick every game?
I do. Yeah,
I love it.
I like the Jets though. I like the Jets in this game.
Yes.
You know, I
have them, by the way, Bogman, at 3.5. So now
that's
it's three now. It's 3 now across the board. Actually, at PointsBet it's 2.5. But really? I have them at 3.5, and I think I was on with Joe, and I said I'm betting it now, like live on the air, because I thought that was a number that you really wanted. Now, especially with all the injuries, for sure, I think the Jets win this game. Like I think they come out of it. It's a totally new regime, obviously, but they did travel. You know, they have traveled to London. You know, in the past.
Well, it's going to take a little bit for everything to click too. With a new coach and a new quarterback. Those are big things. You know, Matt Ryan isn't cooked by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, the dude is getting blasted back there. Yep. That offensive line is rough. They have no semblance of a running game right now, outside of maybe some Cordell Patterson runs. Mike Davis ain't getting it done. And you take away your best playmaker in Ridley and your number 2 wide receiver in Gage. That's a lot. And, you know, begging this Falcons defense to put pressure on the quarterback ain't going to work out for you most of the time. So Zach Wilson might step into some sacks here, but he didn't typically throw a ton of picks in college. So, and I know it's college and it's different, but I think that he's going to start becoming better. And I think the big X factor that you mentioned is Jamison Crowder in this game, and it was last week. We saw it work, and I think it's going to work. I mean, Tennessee's defense isn't good, but it's better than Atlanta's. So
I think it completely changes the offense. I really do, because again, we were sitting there, and especially without Elijah Moore, who had was dealing with a concussion protocol. Like, there really wasn't another option to pass to on that Jets offense. It was Corey Davis or bust. You give Crowder, who again is the intermediate routes. I really think that opens things up. I haven't, I'm a Jets fan, obviously, so I look for reasons to be pessimistic. That's just generally how we go. I haven't been that down on Wilson. Like, there's going to be growing pains, I understand, and everything like that. So he uncorked a couple of throws, made a couple of great reads in this last game. I'm excited to see what he could do, and I'm excited that it's the only game on, even though I'll be live on air over at Fantasy Pros and our Betting Pros YouTube channel at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. I'm there with Matt Peralt. So early. I know Bogman, by the way, is on Hawaiian time, so don't mess with him. He is very, very different. I will be up watching this game for sure, and it's exciting to get to. But so let's go through the rest of the games of Bogman. I'll recap it very quickly. You like Green Bay laying 3, the New England-Houston game over 39.5, and the Vikings laying 9.5 to the Lions. I like the Steelers and the Broncos under the minuscule number of 39.5. The Eagles getting 3.5 in Carolina, and the Jets and the Falcons over 45.5. But again, I would wait and get the best number that you can. Let's run through some of the rest of the spreads here, Bogman. Just let me know. Since you bet everyone, we can know which way you went on it. Obviously, the Jets are now getting 3. That number may change, but I assume you like the Jets.
I do like the Jets, yeah.
Very good. And the Eagles against the Panthers, I think you said you took the Eagles, right?
Yep. Yeah, I got Philly.
By the way, that number now is coming down to 3, so I like it at 3.5. That's where I got it.
I got it at 3. So
did you get it at 3? Okay, I had it at 3.5. I did it last night when I checked, so I had it at 3.5. At 3, it's obviously a little bit less enticing, but I think there's a reason that it's gone down to 3. But I got it at 3.5. I would still take it at 3, but for my official play, because I bet it, I got it at 3.5. We already talked about the Bengals getting 3 from the Packers. You like the Packers there. What about the dead number of the Titans visiting the Jaguars, laying 4.5?
I'll take Tennessee because of the distraction of Urban Meyer and what we saw particularly in the second half of that Thursday night game where they made no adjustments at all. So if you find something that works in the first half, it's going to work in the second half because the Jacksonville coaching staff did adjust not at all. I hated it. So give me Tennessee.
I agree with you. I think, I'm expecting Brown and Julio Jones to be out. I mean, it sounds like Brown has a better chance than Julio Jones, but regardless, I'm expecting both of them to be out, so I don't think you're going to see fireworks necessarily offensively.
Threw for 290 last week without them.
It's true. So it is true. I mean, overtime, right, exactly. It was. He actually played better than I expected. Overall speaking, and again, nobody went off in that game. Everybody was like, who, from a fantasy perspective, everybody was like,
Derrick Henry.
Right, exactly. Just Derrick Henry, and close your eyes.
I thought Westbrook was going to be good because he had so many snaps, but did not translate. Right.
Yeah. No, that's how it works. I mean, I don't think anybody's really going to go off here. But regardless, the Jacksonville coaching staff is just so out of their depth
Yeah.
right now that, I think in the end it's Tennessee by a touchdown. So I would like that game as well. What about the Bucs laying 10 at home to the Dolphins here?
The Dolphins are one of the worst teams in the NFL. They get overshadowed right now by Pittsburgh being bad and Jacksonville being bad, the Jets being bad, but Miami without Tua and even maybe with Tua have been horrific. So I got an angry Tampa Bay team wiping the floor with Miami. I think this is Tampa Bay easy.
So I haven't bet it, but I think I'd go the other way. And the reason is the Dolphins have been terrible. I agree. But I think, number one, it's a very, very emotional, sort of draining game here that they just had against the Patriots for the Bucs. I think the loss of Rob Gronkowski is enormous, just to his ability to block and what they're able to do offensively. Like, I realize it was because of the rain and it's Bill Belichick, but I think a lot of their struggles were because of the fact that the loss of Gronkowski really does make a huge difference there. Their defense is really poor. I mean, the Dolphins are going to do what every other team does, which is say, I'll give you a token 3 runs a game, and then we're just going to pass. And you don't have Will Fuller, and I think that hurts. But Devontae Parker has actually played pretty well. I think you'll see a lot of Jalen Waddle in this game. I think it's going to be close enough where I will take the backdoor cover. I think the Bucs are going to win, but I think that the Dolphins are going to keep it close enough. But
I think Tampa Bay scores on defense, and I think that's the difference.
That's fair. Let's go. What about the Texans getting 8.5 from the Pats?
New England. I mean,
yeah,
not close. I said 35-7 was my final, and that hits the over. I think it's going to play like that.
I knew you were going to say it because you said the 35-7. I don't want to bet the game, but
yeah.
you know what, I'm not even going to say. I think I probably would go with the Texans just because, again, I have a feeling that they're going to keep I know. This is what I do. I take disgusting dogs. That's why I really, really love
you know what, but there is a
Eagles
point. If you get over a touchdown in the NFL, it becomes enormously hard to cover. And
I
understand.
And they're on the road with a rookie. I get how good Belichick is.
That's why I like Green Bay so much, because it's 3 on the road, right? If it was much more than that, I probably wouldn't. But I think they've stomped too. So
yep. All right. I look, forced to go one way, I would go with the Texans, but I do not have strong feelings about it. You sound like you do a little bit, so go with that. The Broncos are visiting the Steelers. We talked about that game with the over/under. The Steelers are laying a point.
I'm not touching it, but I'd take Denver.
You have to go one way, right? You bet every game. That's what you do.
Denver.
Yes, I'm not betting it either. But again, I'll go on the other side and I'll go with the Steelers here at home. Again, I don't like either. I'm not betting it whatsoever. I just feel like, man, as bad as the Steelers are, 1-4, against a Broncos team that I think really is propped up by the fact that they played a super soft schedule early on. They've got those injuries. I think the defense plays well enough to win this game in like a 10-7 game there, Bogman. But yes, we'll see. Hopefully,
my neighbors also hope you're right.
All right, go neighbors. Vikings, we already talked about laying 9.5. How about the Saints visiting Washington? And Washington is getting 2.5.
I'll take Washington. New Orleans hasn't done anything on offense. I mean, I think Jameis has 8 touchdowns, 2 picks. 5 were week 1. So he has 3 touchdowns since then and 2 picks. I don't like any of it, but I'll take Washington here.
If forced to choose, I'm with you. I will take the home dog, but I want nothing to do with this game whatsoever. So a game, though, that I'm mildly intrigued by is the Chargers at home against the Browns. Chargers laying 2. What do you think?
This is my ultimate runaway game. Because I just want to sit and watch it, right?
Yeah.
I just want to see, because these are 2 of the best teams in the AFC right now. I got the Chargers at home. I think SoFi has become a pretty big home field advantage here.
Well, I felt like there were a lot of Raiders fans, though, in that game.
There were. But the stadium is loud. It is loud. It's loud. So and look, maybe there'll be some Cleveland fans, but I don't think they travel. I mean, the Raiders. It was already Raider country in LA.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I like the Chargers here. If I have to go one way, the Chargers have impressed me greatly because it's basically what we thought the Chargers could be had they avoided injuries and had a better coaching staff for like the last couple of years. Like, they have a very strong defense, a very strong offensive line, quarterback who really knows what he's doing. The Mayfield shoulder injury, I think that's probably why sort of we were like, why did Baker Mayfield have the worst game of his career, right? And again, without Jarvis Landry still there, I really think that hurts him and their ability. So I think the Chargers win. I'll lay the 2 points. Again, not one of my best bets, but I would lay the 2 points. How about the Raiders hosting the Bears, laying 5.5?
I'll take the Raiders to bounce back. They did just say that they're going to move Leatherwood to guard, which is, get anybody else at right tackle, right? Leatherwood's been horrific. So
it's funny because we all thought that was such a brilliant pick at the time they made it, right? Everybody lauded it and said, great pick.
Right.
That's a joke.
So,
Nobody liked it.
Maybe he can work out at tackle next year, but it is not working right now. I think they said weeks 1 through 4, he's the lowest graded rookie starting tackle since 2006 on PFF, which is
make such crazy picks during that draft, man. Every single time,
it's the Raiders, man.
It's the Raiders, man.
Clelin Ferrell was their, what is he, number 4, number 5 overall pick, and now he's not even playing.
It's like it's terrible, really terrible. I agree with you, by the way. I agree with you. If I have to go one way, I'm going with the Raiders in this game. I do think it's a bounce back spot, but
Fields is just not very trustable yet.
Not yet. I'm hopeful for later.
I think he's going to be great, but you can't trust him yet. They're not letting him open it up. So
yeah. How about the Cowboys hosting the Giants, laying 7?
I want to go with the Giants, but they're too banged up. Leonard Williams is questionable for this game, so he's not going to be 100%. Blake Martinez just went out for the year. I like what Dallas is doing on offense in particular, so I'm going to take the Cowboys at home.
I'm staying away from it because again, this is when Danny Dimes comes through a little bit here on the road, right, in these games.
A rivalry game too, divisional game.
Yeah. I'm staying away though. This is a game I do just want to kind of watch, but I'm just staying away. But if you got to go somewhere, you're going with the Cowboys. If I got to go somewhere, I am jumping out the window. Let's go to the Cardinals laying 5 at home against the 49ers.
Cardinals, they match up well, and the Cardinals just came off a very impressive win running the ball against the Rams, which I never thought we would say. Cardinals run the ball and win, but they did it. So they're showing more sides than just being one-dimensional, which is going to play into their hands against this bad secondary for San Francisco. So give me the Cardinals at home.
Yeah, I just feel like I don't have enough of a sense of what the 49ers are going to look like offensively anyway for me to have any faith that I could.
Trey Lance, maybe. Jimmy G, maybe.
All right. Who is it going to be? And if it's Trey Lance, I don't feel like comfortable enough to know exactly what I'd see from them anyway. I don't know. Again, another stay away from me. If forced to go somewhere, I would go with the Cardinals like you. The game that everybody wants to watch on Sunday night, the Bills visiting the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 3-point favorites.
I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills on the road in Kansas City. Don't particularly love this game, but I do think the Bills are clicking on all cylinders after losing to Pittsburgh week 1 at home. They've been playing angry. They've been running it up. I think they look great right now. They're one of the best teams in the NFL, so I'm going to take Buffalo.
I agree with you. That first game against Pittsburgh, I think there were some question marks, right? There were a little bit like, oh, no, is this a regression that we didn't see coming? But they've played really well since then. I agree. I'm probably not going to bet it because I just want to watch it, right? But it's. I think the Bills are the right side here, cashing the points. Final game here, Monday Night Football. The Colts are visiting the Ravens. The Ravens are laying 7.
Hate this game. Don't like it at all. I'd take, if forced to pick, I'm going to take Baltimore because I just don't like what the Colts have been doing on offense in particular. You need to give the ball more to Jonathan Taylor, but Carson Wentz is already banged up. So give me Baltimore. And they seem to be winning everything by the skin of their teeth, but they should have one good win here soon.
I agree with you. I would go Baltimore here as well. And again, there are a couple of books. BetMGM, noticeably, that's at 6.5. So if you can get that, that's obviously better. I would also go with Baltimore. But again, it's mostly a stay away. Okay, very briefly, I will recap our best bets. And then we will say goodbye to everyone. Bogman, you were taking the Packers laying 3 to the Bengals, the Patriots and the Texans over 39.5 points, and the Vikings laying 9.5 points to the Lions. I'm taking the Steelers and the Broncos under 39.5. The Eagles getting 3.5 in Carolina. If you've got to take it at 3, that's fine, but I will take the 3.5 because I locked it in. And the Jets and the Falcons currently over 45.5, but again, I would wait at this point because I think that number is coming down. Bogman, thank you for joining me, for time traveling, for doing everything. I love it. You are crushing it on the College Football Pod. By the way, if you play fantasy, because I know it's BettingPros, Bogman is also our IDP expert, and he crushes it there. He also crushes it just generally as a fantasy expert, but he does everything. Bogman, in addition to here at Betting Pros, in addition to Fantasy Pros, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in this league with myself and the Welsh, we do fantasy football 3 times a week. We do 2 shows and then a betting show as well. I do Line Star with my buddy Casey Bubba as well, talking about NFL bets, and of course Betting Pros here, and Sports Grid as well, and 1,000 other individual defensive podcasts, ITL CFF, so all the stuff and things. You can find me everywhere.
Hardest working man in show business. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and you guys know what the deal is. Enjoy your weekend, all your football. We'll be back on Monday breaking down some of the early reaction to the Week 6 lines. I'll talk to you then.